My name is Andrea Leiter, and I am a PhD candidate at the University of Melbourne in the law school. I also work on blockchain technology and law, and in that capacity I have been working as a consultant for startups as well as a consultant for government agencies with regards to how to conceptualize blockchain and law, what to even make of these topics. That one of the things to consider when thinking about governance, social justice, inclusion, is that the players have changed quite a bit or seem to be changing. The more we look at digital governance and the more we rely on digital governance mechanisms, the more we have to consider who are the people making decisions and where is the power of decision in there. So I think one of the, a part of the actors is computer scientists, coders who write the codes that we then rely on for all sorts of things, algorithmic governance and so on, is something that has not been considered so much in governance discussions. If you consider big platforms as Uber, Airbnb and so on, the way, the role of the corporation in putting out policies of how these platforms are being regulated is a very important area. And I think with the conception of governance, it's not quite clear yet if it is a model of corporate governance that we want to think with, or is it a model of state governance, constitutionalism that we want to think with for these entities, or do we need to come up with very new conceptions of governance to grasp this new order of responsibilities and power. If you take an example such as Uber, just considering the way the algorithm is written for Uber drivers, so the people who are employed by Uber, the way they get allocated rides or not allocated, or the way how much time they spend driving and so on, is somewhat encoded in that algorithm that makes the appropriation of clients and drivers. But as a public, we know very little, or let's say rather almost nothing, about what values are embedded in this algorithm. So who gets rewarded, who gets punished by what. So I think that might be an example in which we can see that the way the algorithm works makes big decisions and has impact on the life of many people. So I think that is one of the challenges that we come up against now. So the first obvious answer would be the national jurisdiction, the regulator in a national jurisdiction to establish some expertise on how does this governance work and what kind of principles could be developed in order to have guidelines there. But I think that another problem there is that there is a internationalized system. So I guess when you talk about labor rights and workers, then the national jurisdiction might still work as an apparatus to capture what is going on. But I think in other areas, a more international governance is required to get at that. And there, the question is it the state and organization of states that can really do that, or do we have to somehow get at corporate decision making, but on a more transparent and more publicly controlled level? So yeah, I think these are challenges of who should do that or who can do that, and it will depend on the area that should be regulated, where the right address is for responsibility. I think the too much regulation is a framing that doesn't necessarily help much. So I think too much is not the way to go at it, but I think there can be wrong regulation. So there can be very burdensome regulation, particularly I think with regards to blockchain. I think one of the problems in that area is that it's a technology that is complex and has a little bit of a hurdle to, at the first moment when you start engaging with it, to get over until you feel comfortable dealing with it and working with it. And so I think that often the regulator then defaults to a regulation that is very cumbersome and difficult and time-consuming because that is the safest way, or it seems the safest way, but that can take then something out of the quick development and the quick movement. So issues of what kind of safeguards for consumers and so on have to be upheld. In the area of blockchain, when it comes to the question of the rules and regulations that have to be obeyed by startups, sometimes the cost for approval certificates or stuff or things like this can be very high, and it can take a long time to receive approval. So that would be one area where I think that the regulation is a little cumbersome and might be hindering, yet it must be balanced towards the safety risks involved.